95% of people don't see the progress that they're looking for in the gym. So here's some honest advice about how you can make sure you are making progress. There is a point where your training knowledge and your training commitment allow you to make some serious gains. But unfortunately, there are a lot of people who know enough to get started, but not enough to know how to really see progress. It's really frustrating because there are a few really simple fixes that can solve this. And that's exactly what I'm going to cover today. Really simple things you can do to guarantee progress. So there's two really key areas: how you train and how you eat. We're going to kick off with training. So here are some simple training tips to max out your gains. So let's start with the actual training plan itself. And there are two main problems that I see here. The first one is a lack of a training plan. It lacks structure and it relies heavily on turning up, seeing what equipment's free and doing whatever you fancy. Even if you push yourself really, really hard in that session, it's not going to be effective at getting you to your goals. You're likely to train what you want and not necessarily what you need, which means you might be missing out on areas of improvement. And then the second problem I see is having a training plan that is super varied week on week. People do this because they want it to be fun. A lot of trainers who are new into it might do this as well because they're trying to impress their clients. And this is better than having no plan, but it's not going to allow you to apply progressive overload when you're doing different exercises every single week. And it's the progressive overload which is key to getting you those awesome results. But what is progressive overload? This is the single thing which is going to make you have massive gains. Without it, you're going to do maintenance at best. It's going to be easiest if I give you an example of progressive overload. So I'm going to assume that you're lifting in rep ranges, and let's say you're lifting in a rep range of 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps. Now, for sake of argument, let's say you're using 24k dumbbells for dumbbell bench press. Week 1, you might hit 3 sets of 11, 10, maybe even 12 reps across your 3 sets. Week 2, you would look to use the same weight and try and beat those reps. Over a couple of weeks, you might find that suddenly you're able to lift more than 12 reps at that same 24 kilo weight. And once you can do this consistently, hitting over 12, you now need to increase that weight. So you might go to 26 kilos. And again, you would try and stick within that rep range. And when your body's a little bit more used to it as well, you could add in an extra set. So you're looking at 4 sets. And this is essentially what progressive overload is. You're either doing more reps at the same weight or more sets, or you're gradually increasing the weight as you're getting stronger. And you're only going to achieve that by making sure you have consistency in your lifts, which you can't do when you're doing different exercises every single session, every single week. The next problem I see is people doing too many isolation exercises. And whilst these are great to include as accessory lifts into your workout, it's really important that you include compound lifts as well. So again, easier if I give you an example for this. So you want to grow your quads. For an isolated exercise, you might do leg extensions on a machine. And these are great for a quad pump. But including squats as one of your lifts, which is a compound exercise, you're also going to be using your core a lot more, your quads and your glutes. This is the same for, say, a bench press, which is going to use your chest, your triceps, as well as a bit of your shoulders. And then you compare that to a tricep push down, which only works the triceps. So there's definitely a place for both, but I would nail your compound lifts first and then add in those isolation exercises as a top up. But if you purely do isolation exercises, you are missing out on the core and the overall benefits of doing whole body training. And this one is an absolute huge one, and that is technique. So many people will go in and they'll do what's called ego lifting. They try and lift way too heavy before they are able to. And the issue with this is it's going to risk injury. You're also going to probably be using momentum or poor technique to be able to get that lift. So you're not working the muscles that you're actually wanting to be working in the movement. It also compromises the progressive overload because you're lifting too heavy before you're ready to hit that amount of reps with good quality, and can really slow your progress down. When you are working a muscle, you want to make sure those muscles are engaged and you're working them well and you're not relying on momentum. In order to get the most out of a movement, you want to take out things like momentum, anything like that, what shows that a weight is too heavy for you, and instead get an appropriate weight where you can do the reps with real quality and you can go to a strength failure, not a technical failure. This is going to make sure you grow those muscles. The other thing that can help with this is looking at tempo lifting. So what a lot of people will do, again, Typically when a weight is too heavy for them, they're going to lift that weight as fast as they possibly can, rather than getting the most out of it by controlling the movement. Not only does this allow for greater control, but also allows for more time under tension. So instead of swinging that weight as fast as possible, it might be that you try 2 seconds up, 2 seconds down. By focusing on this, you're increasing the time under tension and you won't be relying on momentum to lift the weight. This is another way you could use progressive overload by slowing a movement down. An easy way of explaining that is the concentric movement is the way up. So for example, on a bicep curl, that would be the concentric movement, and eccentric is on the way down, slow and controlled. So manipulating our time under tension, both concentric and eccentric, optimizes your gains. And then the final part of training is training volume. Getting this right is going to be really key. Now this is going to depend on how long you've been training, at what intensity you've been training, and how consistently you've been training. Meaning you might need more or less volume depending on your situation. So when you're new into lifting, you get something called DOMS, you get a delayed onset of muscle soreness, which means you need longer to recover between sessions. When you're more experienced and you've done that lifting at that intensity for a longer amount of time, the DOMS is much less and the recovery time needed is much less as well. This is something to consider as well when thinking about how many times you hit a certain muscle group within the same session. Otherwise, you might end up with 20 sets of biceps across the week and only 3 sets of legs. So splitting that volume evenly across the week can really help manage that. A simple way of looking at it is to start with play it safe, see how you recover, and then increase the volume gradually until you find your optimum level of volume and intensity, allowing for decent recovery and awesome sessions. So to summarize on the training, you're going to want to have a really solid training plan that allows for progressive overloads. It's going to have decent compound lifts in, as well as your accessory isolation exercises. It's going to be at a volume and intensity which is suitable to your training level and experience, and all of which is going to be done with spot on technique, using things like time under tension to make sure you get the most out of every session. Okay, so now you've optimized your training, we're going to look at nutrition. Nutrition is super important and often overlooked. For me personally, in my transformation, it was nutrition that made the real difference. And you can hugely speed up your progress if you get this right. So I'm going to give some nutrition tips on your calories, your macros, and consistency. Firstly, calories. If your goal is to build muscle, you need to be at maintenance or even in a slight surplus. If your goal is to lose fat, you're going to need to be in a calorie deficit, i.e. drinking and eating less calories than you burn. And if you want the holy grail, you want to lose fat and build muscle, you need to be in a small calorie deficit. Now, a lot of people say you can't lose fat and build muscle at the same time, but you absolutely can. Now, if you've trained for a very long time and are very consistent with your intensity and your nutrition, it's going to be harder to do that. But that doesn't describe 99% of people. Even people who feel like they've been training consistently probably haven't hit the intensity consistently enough for it to be a problem. Next up, macro targets. Now, these aren't essential, especially for newer lifters. However, they can really help accelerate your progress. So the first bit of advice that I would give is going to be around protein. Increasing the protein that you have, but making sure it's sustainable. For example, it's far better to consistently hit 100 grams of protein every single day than it is to hit 150 grams of protein 3 times and then be nowhere near it for the rest of the week. Now, there's lots of reasons why protein is so important. It keeps you fuller for longer and it takes more calories to digest. It's also great for recovery and for building strength and muscle. Also, by filling up on protein, you're going to be less likely to snack on other foods. And it really is hard to eat too much protein. Then with your carbs and your fats, this I wouldn't overstress. I would look at your calorie target as well as your protein target, and then divide the carbs and fats as you see fit. And this is to do with personal preferences as well. We all know those people who love bread, love pasta, absolutely love their carbs. So as long as they're within their calories and they're hitting their protein, then the carbs can be higher, the fat would just be lower. Then we know the people who like the cheese, like the chocolate, those style of things. So in that case, the fat's going to be higher, but the carbs would have to be lower. But really, you can split those two how you like. Based on your food preferences, your energy levels, all of that is going to take into account. So my macros, I'm on just under 3,000 calories and I have 200 grams of protein a day. And then the carbs and the fat, I split as needed. I generally like the cheeses and things like that, so I'm slightly higher in fat and slightly lower in carbs relatively, but I do still love my carbs. So in order for me to hit that, what I do is I take my 200 grams of protein and I split that over 3 or 4 meals, and then I'll have a high protein snack. So at breakfast, I will make sure I get at least 30 grams of protein. For lunch and for dinner, I try and have 50 in each of those, which leaves me with 70 grams of protein left. So I'd probably have another meal with 30 or 40 grams of protein in it. And then with what's remaining, I use for my protein snacks. For example, protein yogurt or some light baby bell, tuna rice cakes, or whatever I fancy really. So just to add to that, I would say that the most important meal of getting your protein in is breakfast. If you miss it at breakfast, you are chasing it for the rest of the day. And this is why people who have toast for breakfast, whilst toast isn't bad, it doesn't have any protein in it. So you're setting yourself up for failure on your protein goals. So add some eggs into that, get your protein in. Another fan favorite is overnight oats, which you can put some protein powder in or some Greek yogurt to boost that protein content. And then my final piece of advice for optimizing goals is to prioritize sleeping well. It's overlooked by most people and has huge advantages. When you have good energy going into a session, you're going to train at a higher intensity and enjoy your session a lot more. And studies have shown it can lead to higher fat burning versus training when you're knackered, you haven't had much sleep, you've not got much energy, you're not going to be hitting any PBs that day, and you'll be training at a lower intensity. So stop your doom scrolling at night, go to bed half an hour earlier and prioritize a good night's sleep. So now your training's sorted, your nutrition's good because you'll prioritize your protein, you know exactly how many calories you need to be on to hit your goals, you're prioritizing your sleep, you've got good energy and you're working at a good intensity. This is going to put you in a really good place to make sure you are optimizing your gains. So I've given you all the advice you need to absolutely go and smash your goals. However, all the knowledge in the world is no good without taking action. So if you're really serious about achieving your goals, you can apply for our one-to-one body transformation program. We will optimize your training, your nutrition, and your lifestyle with your very own tailored program. You'll have all the accountability and support you need to smash your goals. We've already helped over 350 people achieve their goals. So whether it's weight loss, muscle gain, having more energy, whatever your goals, we will help you hit them. We're so confident in what we do, we've even got a guarantee on results. So if you're interested, the link is in the description. You can apply there. Thanks for listening. Make sure you like and subscribe. Now with those movements as well, there's the concentric phase and the eccentric phase. Concentric, eccentric. No. But it's not going to allow you to apply a